Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, March 25th, 2025, approximately 9 a.m. We'll go ahead and call the Jackson County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. I'm Don Swanker. To my left, Mike Steinus. To my right, Nan Flegel. Bjorn from IT, Lisa from the auditors, Luann in the back, our executive assistant. The first on the agenda is Jaden Shekel.
Morning. First thing on the agenda is our fiscal year 26 county 5-year program resolution. So back in late February, we had our public hearing on the 5-year program. After that, I submitted it to the DOT because their new process is they have to approve it before it comes to you for approval. So submitted it. They had no issues with it other than a little map I had to that shoulder the projects I had to tweak just a little bit. But other than that, like as far as projects and estimated cost, all that, no issues. So they approved it last week, I believe it was. So bringing it forward for approval today.
What resolution number would this be?
1104-03-25-2025.
Make a motion to approve.
I would second.
We got a motion by Nan, second by Mike to approve resolution number 1104-03-25-25 for the approval of the Secondary Roads Department 5-year program and budget. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Next is an entrance permit for a new farm entrance on 525th Avenue for Kevin Johnson. It's in section 8 of what township? Iowa Township. Met site distance, no issues there. Does not require culvert, so pretty straightforward. So recommend approval on this one.
Just farm.
Yes, yep.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Mike, second by Nan to approve a farm entrance on 525th Avenue, Iowa Township, section 8. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
That's all I had to give an update quick. There had been, from the last meetings, there's been people asking about the Damon Bridge, so that's good. The word's getting out, but so right now it's still on schedule for April 7th. If that does change, it won't change by much, maybe a few days, but.
You're talking on Z34, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're gonna do the abutments first.
Yep, the approach work will be first. And I would expect that to take a couple of weeks, maybe right around that time, maybe less, but around 2 weeks. And then after that, sometime to follow will be the asphalt work, which the road will be open for that with one lane. But
I had the question asked by several people on, are we gonna do both sides of the bridge approachment?
no,
Just
just
the
the
one?
south. Yep.
Is the north side bad?
Yeah,
Ideally, if we get all these grants, we can likely apply for the County Bridge Construction Fund for Damon Bridge if all these grants fall in our favor.
they just kind of wondered that if it was gonna be closed, it would be nice if we just did.
How much
Both
would it be to
sides, since
just
it's
do
bad.
both approaches?
I could see what a change order would be. So the only reason we did the south one was
Obviously, that's where you're coming
Yeah,
up with the
right.
and we
payment.
didn't want to put asphalt over top of the existing concrete there because you're in guardrail section there and guardrail's got to be so high above pavement. So it's like, well, if we simply overlay it, then we have to tear out the guardrail and put that back and that gets into a whole mess thing. So let's just tear out the concrete approach and reinstall it back where it's a smoother ride and all that. But I can get a change order when they're out there to see what it would be for that north bridge approach.
Well, if they're there and it's in a minimal distance, I don't know how many feet you're talking.
It'd probably be, what is it, 70 feet or so?
Is it that much?
Mm-hmm.
It would just be at least worth being that it's already closed and all that kind of stuff. It would just save.
Yeah, I could actually.
Can we find out ahead of time so that we're not like closing it open,
Yeah, because if we want to do it, that'd be the time to do it while it's all closed.
right?
Right.
And we should know a rough cost because that bid item for concrete approach is in each item. So the concrete approach has got a set width, a set length. So it's by each. So we would, right now we have one and that has associated bid price. So we can, okay, what is it for the second one? There just might be a little bit of
Contour.
concrete work to blend back in, but be very minimal, but we could easily come up with at least a rough cost and talk to the contractor if that's something they'd be willing to do.
You know, and then can we afford? But it does make sense to take a look at that. At least, I
Have to
mean,
get a number first before we.
Yeah.
I can keep you updated on what that rough number would be in contract. I would assume they wouldn't, since they're there doing the work, so.
Right.
But I'll talk to them to verify, but. Yeah, that's something we can look into.
Let us know.
Mhm.
Anything else? Oh, go ahead.
Reclaim coming, going, starting.
So they have started some of the roads where it's essentially sitting on bluff where there's nothing to reclaim and re-rock and some of those to start getting ahead. So they have started that. Rick, I'm gonna talk to him. I talked to him last week and depending on what the weather looks like this week, there was maybe a chance we could start this week or likely next. It just depends on how much rain we get, but yes, we are itching to go. So.
Okay,
Cool. Anything else for Jen?
I do not.
Anything else for us?
Where to find you?
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Next up, we have visitors and citizens. If there's anybody here online. I'm thinking now there's nobody online, but there's some extra people here. Is anybody like to address the board?
I would just like to say a few words.
Okay, stand up, introduce yourself and come up closer to the microphone. So right here, hanging from the seat.
So I'm Angela Wood. I'm the administrator at Andrew Jackson Care. I've been out there since about November of last year. And just wanted to kind of stop by, introduce myself, invite you guys to come out and see the facility and kind of see what we do. And then just say how much we appreciate, you know, Deputy Hire, stopping in to check on us and see how we've been doing. And, he's been really great with our individuals that are in crisis with their mental health. He helps to come out and de-escalate the situation, and it's just good to have the community support, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Appreciate that. We
Thank you.
appreciate what you do too. I get out there once in a while. I don't necessarily come in the building a lot of times, but we do have good conversations with Jared and our maintenance guys, so. Yeah, I know we've been doing a few improvements out there as we go along, but.
Mhm. Yeah, and we've been trying to make it more home-like and less facility-like, so we've gotten a lot more decorations and we're trying to just make it more like a home environment, so it's really good for our individuals.
Okay, I know there was some talk about improving a bathroom or two in there, so.
Yes, we really need bathrooms.
That is something maybe Jared and Jeff can talk about, kind of formulate a game plan going forward that we can see what else we can do.
Perfect, well, thank you. And we'll probably just randomly be coming once a month, just to sit in on the meetings and kind of give you updates if we have any, so.
Good, thank you.
Appreciate
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Yeah. And let us know if you need anything.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the right time or not.
Okay,
I'm Charlie. I'm with RM Capital Ventures. I am part of the team that's trying to put a data center here in Jackson
Okay, your
County.
name again was?
Charlie White.
Charlie.
Is this a good time or should we wait until?
No, you can, or, I know we're talking about it a little bit with the zoning administrator. She's gonna be in about 9:30, so.
Okay. There's a couple different things when it comes to the zoning. We don't fit into any category whatsoever. We can't come here because we don't fit in M1. We don't obviously fit in agricultural. So that is one big hurdle for us to come in and try to do business. The other one was obviously sound. And the administrator that is going to be coming here went to one of our facilities in Union, Iowa, where we do not have direct drive fans. We have fans that have bearings in them, and we have fans that have belts in them. And she was able to record at 600 feet noise. And that's not something that we're accustomed to. And it's something that we're moving forward, not using bearings and belts anymore. There's also 3 different types of cooling that we're capable of doing. There's one which is the air-cooled systems, where we use direct drive fans now. There's also a water-cooled system, and then there is a commercial chiller system, which is basically an industrial air conditioner is what it is. So we have gone forward with the air-cooled system is trying to stay about 500 feet away from anybody's property. So they have time to enjoy it and they don't have to hear it. Our systems are about at 45 feet with the chilled systems. the hydro systems, at 45 feet, they're about 60 decibels. So we try to achieve 200 feet away from somebody's property for them to enjoy it. So I would like to basically not put a moratorium on all data centers, because there's different ways of cooling things. There's different ways of being quieter. And the closest house, I think, was close to 700 feet away from where our facility was proposed to be. And at 500 feet, where with the air cooled systems, we're about 60 decibels, somewhere around in there. At 200 feet with the hydro systems, we're going to be about the same noise level. So I'd like to be able to at least fit into somebody's zoning, as well as present a cooler, or excuse me, a quieter system using the water cooler.
Well, I think part of the option we have with the moratorium is we initially issued one, and then we had a company present, and it seemed like it worked, so we lifted it, and it can be identified on an individual basis. I think the desire with this is realizing there's so much of variety and unknown with these. That's why we're just kind of, I don't know if it's a gut check or whatever, just to make sure we're covered, because again, I will say that we had some of those people that lived around the proposed site, and they went out and explored several throughout the state. And they all had noisy from 1,500, 2,000 feet away kind of experiences. And they were looking at 600 feet. So we're just trying to make sure we have a good understanding of what going forward that can work.
Yeah, and I'd like to provide you that understanding. I
Okay.
now have hydro systems and air cooled systems together. And so those can also be looked at. They're closer to Marshalltown.
Okay.
So if somebody wants a presentation, if somebody wants to come in, we're an open door. They're allowed to come into our facilities at any time. Don't even have to knock, just come on to the site and see it. Like I said, the hydro chilled systems are extremely, extremely quiet. And the only reason why that we looked at putting in putting in the air cooled systems over a hydro is a air cooled system for a pod is about $70,000. The hydros are about $130,000. So they're $60,000 more per pod, which is, a significant savings to us if we can get by with it. And we didn't get ahead of the ball on this one to be able to put in the water cooled system, knowing that people were this emotional about it. So we'd like to be able to have time to be able to present it.
Okay.
I guess it makes a difference, where the site might be and what the distance is for emergency responses or whatever it might be, cause we just don't know enough about it.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's a fair assessment to say all of us here, we are not subject matter experts on data mining, as I think about 99.9% of the people are around.
Very much so.
And so we just want to make sure if we're going to proceed with something that it's equitable for everybody.
Yes, and I understand. And I also understand some of the negative aspects that come with this. There are some bad actors in my industry. They don't care. They would put a mining site directly across the street if they could do it and could care less about anybody's feelings, could care less about anybody's environment. And that's not who we are. That's why when I go out and look at land and I find these locations, if I'm within 500 feet of a house in an air cooled system, I just don't even bother. I don't bother to look at land unless I can get into like a commercial chilled system, which is much quieter, but then that still doesn't go back and look at where we fit in anything when it comes to Macokota. Where do we fit into Jackson County as far as zoning is concerned as well. So
Charlie, how long have you had these sites up by Marshalltown? I'd have not heard of them.
I do not know how long the one in Marshalltown has been there. We've been in business since 2019. Grundy Center was the first one that we had, which of course was a hoop building. And once again, we are not building a hoop building. These will be pods that'll be similar to shipping containers. I don't know if anybody's ever seen commercial sized batteries as well. They look exactly about the same. The only difference is they have a water tower built into them as well. So I can get you that information if you want me to.
Well, we also look at what the value is to the county. Is there a taxable entity there? Is there value there that?
I believe the project that we had scheduled with the air cooled system here, and don't quote me on this, the patronage back to the cooperative was 33,000, somewhere around in there.
The
So that
co-op
would be
being the electrical co-op.
correct.
Right.
We were basically giving our patronage back to the cooperative, so it would go back to the community. And then at the county level, I think there is somewhere around $20,000 in taxes because we do have to pay taxes on electricity. So it goes back to the county, and then I don't remember if at the state level is $60,000 or $80,000, somewhere around there as far as the state level is concerned. Please don't quote me on that, but yes,
No,
we
it's-
do have to pay taxes on electricity, and it does go to the county and it does go to the state.
Okay, well, if you want, we can kind of chew on this and when we talk with Lori, but I think there's just a lot of unknowns right now.
Sure.
And
So have you
very
left your
busy.
information in your
Yeah,
card
You
or?
have your car, you have a card.
I can get you a card. That's not a problem. In fact, I can probably look up the numbers real quickly as well.
Okay,
And as we close out this meeting, I can kind of tell you what those numbers are as far as taxes are
or you
concerned.
can grab my card from Luann over there and email us or the three of
Okay,
us. or
yeah, I
whatever.
can do that too. All right.
That would be good. Thank you very much,
Thank
Charlie.
you.
Hey, Charlie.
All right, any other visitors who'd like to address the board? There's somebody online. Who else joined online? Oh, Lori.
I'm not
Sorry.
there.
I was gonna say, you're two places at once. That don't qualify for double pay, by the way. Next up would be Jennifer Mashandy with Engel Insurance.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hey.
Week 3. Less paperwork, how about that?
Hey,
Okay.
you have a
I
recommendation.
do. My recommendation is that you go with the ICAP.
Okay.
That was the recommendation that was provided in the first packet for the 1 mil. I actually recommend that you go with the ICAP for the 2 mil because you had a 2 mil policy with Tokyo before. After more research, things like that, there's 3 reasons why I really feel compelled that that's the best choice. Yes, I understand it's the most premium. 1, it would streamline your package. It all would be with ICAP. You wouldn't have individual applications and processes. Tokyo and CFC could come back with some underwriting that says you have to put in certain things for cyber specific. ICAP is going to work with you because they understand the type of entity you are and at a much slower rate and pace for that process. And your claims process would be exactly the same with ICAP. So when you buy the 2 mil Tokyo through ICAP, it's actually still ICAP's policy and it's reinsured through Tokyo. And after looking at the sublimits and the processes, and that's my recommendation is you go with the 2 mil ICAP cyber policy.
And Bjorn, have you had a chance to look this over and just,
Lisa and I went over it Friday with Jennifer, so, yeah.
and you guys are okay?
Thoughts of the board?
You can, the original recommendation from Joe was only a 1 mil through ICAP. That would be reducing your limit. You certainly can do that. Reducing your coverage limit, right? I think you guys had identified that maybe there's another layer from the state or something as well that you felt confident that you have. You'd had a 2 mil policy before. So I need to, make sure that we've got the apple in the room. And that would be my recommendation. If you wanted to stay with the same value of limit, that you would go with the 2 mil.
Does that extra coverage that we got last year,
The
last
excess
week?
does not go over top of cyber.
Okay,
Did check on that. Cyber's on its own.
to be.
Um,
Thoughts of the board?
have we, what's the norm? I guess there is no norm probably.
There is, again, and that's the nice part about having your ICAP.
We
rep.
don't know, yeah.
You guys know her, you see her at meetings. She literally said it's across the board. Everybody has their own limit. There is no magic number that this is what all counties take. Every county looks at it differently.
Jen, can you go over again what the 1 mil and 2 mil costs were? again?
Yep, with ICAP, your 1 mil was 6,000 and 2 mil was at 15. She did go back to Tokyo and is still trying to negotiate that rate a little bit because when they did it independently, they came back at 14.4, which is a small amount. When we were digging through it though, we believe that that you will potentially get some underwriting with your next audit that will require some additional factors be plugged into continuation of that policy, which would make that premium,
So your
that cost
recommendation,
plus premium, right?
so your recommendation is going through ICAP and then they underwrite it,
It's all
Tokyo.
ICAP and it's reinsured by Tokyo.
okay?
So it's
and-
all ICAP.
And then it's renegotiated through to
Mhm.
make sure the
Mhm.
sublimits and all that stuff.
Yep. And I feel like Megan did a really good job representing ICAP and letting you know how she would handle and help assist with claims and things like that. That relationship is worth something. The Tokyo and the CFC, those are carriers, they're underwriters. We don't have that same level of relationship with them.
So the 2 mils 15 even, or is it like
It was 15,000 on your, original time.
Yeah.
And what we had last year, we just had the 1 million last year.
No, you had 2 mil with Tokyo independently.
Yeah.
But you only had a 11-month, 10-month policy because you bought it,
And our premium was,
like 11,000 something, almost 12,000 last year. Premiums going up because the events are happening. You have awareness of the events that are occurring right around you.
Questions, comments, thoughts, motion?
Okay, I'm leaning towards the 1 mil.
I'd make a motion to stay with the 1 million.
You need to untable first.
I'll make a motion, we untable our process of the insurance renewal.
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Mike, second by Nan to untable the cyber insurance discussion and motion. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Now,
Now I want to make a motion to proceed with the $1 million coverage as presented.
With which carrier, Mike?
I can.
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Mike, second by Nan to approve the cyber insurance at a $1 million policy through ICAP. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I
Motion carries.
Thank you. I'll see you when you require me.
Have a good day.
I'll see you until next year.
Next year?
Oh, I'll see you next year.
Okay, sounds good. Next year,
Lori?
right? Thanks.
Lori, are you back there?
See you in the halls?
You want me to-
Lori, are you on? Great. Lisa, you want to go?
I can. This morning, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the March 18th, 2025 board proceedings and work session as written by Auditor Smith and authorized publication in the official newspapers.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Nin, second by Mike to approve the minutes of the March 18th, 2025 board proceedings and work session as written by Auditor Smith and authorized publication in official newspapers. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve and authorize the auditor's office to issue warrants in the publication of the claims listing in the amount of $668,408.98.
So moved.
Second.
We had a motion by Mike, second by Nin to authorize the auditor's office to issue warrants and the publication of the claims listing in the amount of $668,408.98. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I also need a motion to approve the chair signature on a contract with Tri-State Automatic Sprinkler for repairs at the Andrew Jackson Care Facility for $6,350.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Nin, second by Mike to approve chair signature on a contract with Tri-State Automatic Sprinklers for repairs to the Andrew Jackson Care Facility for the amount of $6,350. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
And in keeping with keeping the meeting today moving forward, I would like to defer the discussion for my last item. We can talk about that later.
Okay. All right. Lori, you ready?
Yes, sir.
You.
Good morning.
I just went ahead and made sure you guys have a copy of that. So there was 2 things on the agenda for my department. One was, that zoning commission case, but that was finished, is to my understanding. I went back and double checked the tape, so we don't have any action or any discussion, I believe, on that. So then we come down to you guys were talking about possibly wanting to place a moratorium back in place on data processing centers, data mining, that type of stuff. So basically, we just revamped the previous moratorium that we had back last fall and changed some dates. I don't know that we're gonna need it extended out to where I put it. I believe I have it August 31st.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna do that, have to go that far out. We had really good input for for the most part at the meeting on March 10th. So we know concerns, setback concerns and fire protection is a big concern. So, if we know we can put those types of things in place, and sound mitigation, which it sounds like Mr. White, they're addressing that for their type of facilities. So that's a good thing. We should be able to have this done before August 31st. And one thing I'd like to really request that when we do this, I'd like to see it as a standalone and not put in with our general ordinance.
The standalone ordinance is what you're.
I would like to have this as a standalone and not built in, yeah. And just in the ordinance, it would say refer to this, because that's gonna bog us down if we add it as part of our ordinance. So it's easier to keep the things that are probably, I hate to use the word controversial, but in this case, this is very, and yeah, it's very emotional things. So if we can keep it separate and a standalone, so I'd like to just see if you guys agree to that, and I'm pretty confident the commission will probably see it the same way.
So a couple things I have is, it was brought to my attention before about the schooling systems, and they were much quieter and so on and so forth. So again, I would like to see them face to face rather than, if there's one as close as Marshalltown that I could look at, that's much different.
We can do that.
But I'm also gonna go back to, this is a case by case to the commission on a case by case basis, correct?
Right now it is, yes.
Yes.
But if we put it in ordinance, this is the ordinance, let's follow it.
But then you better have some specifications to,
Yes, sir. That's what's, I have a draft going if you want to look at it.
Nope.
I mean, because even with, no offense, even to with what, Charlie presented there, 600 decibels at 500 feet from my house,
60.
or 60, sorry.
It's a bit-
Sorry,
little
there's a
different.
big difference.
A little difference.
60, if I had to hear that
Constantly.
24/7, 365 days a year, the idea of me having my home in the country is, I don't want city noise, and that's basically what your
Right.
city noise is, out there. If you would take my place, for example, if you would put a decimal reading out at my place, you're probably maybe gonna hit 25 if the cows are mooing and.
If I could interject.
Yeah.
The conversation.
Come a little closer because of the.
Sorry. If you Google it, it will say that 50 decibels is a quiet neighborhood. So
But
I understand where you're coming
in the
from.
town, it's a quiet neighborhood, it's not what.
You're correct. And I completely, to be 100% honest, I completely agree with you. I wouldn't want to hear 60 decibels at my property line either. I'm the same. I absolutely feel the same thing. When she brought up the video at 600 feet of our bearing squeaking, it sunk me. It was like, holy crap. Are you kidding me? I don't want to hear that either. I'm sorry. I don't. Even though you can walk outside and it's not a loud noise, but
It's annoying.
yeah,
Then you also gotta look at terrain and stuff, because when you start
Sure.
going down in valleys and stuff, it echoes and
Right,
things
and
start
it
resonating
carries.
back
and where we're
versus a flat.
where we're particularly at, where we were aiming our exhaust noise was into a big growth of trees. So that would have done a huge mitigation of the sound.
Some,
So
but
to
it's
say-
still in a valley, so it's still gonna carry. Where I'm at, and this is what I was at the public hearing meeting. And, I brought up the fact that the sound comes up my valley. I said, my kids learned a lot of their language from the neighbors sorting cattle. And there's trees and stuff like that in between there too, but it still comes up the valley.
And like I said, I agree with you. This particular location, I don't think it would have been as big of a deal as some other locations where we could have had refraction of sound or sound coming up a valley or something to that effect. I really do believe that in hearing a hydro-cooled system that at the 200 feet level, you're still going to hear it. But when we start looking at houses and valleys and things like that in this particular location, I don't believe you're gonna be able to hear it at all, even if it was the stillest night you could possibly have with all the windows open, you know, instead of air conditioning running and things like that. I don't believe you can hear that at the property line of the house that's the closest. So that's what I'm coming here and saying. My honest conversations with my bosses, why the hell did we do this in the first place? And knowing that there's a $60,000 cost per pod, and I think there were 5 pods in here, that was like, okay, now I understand. We also don't usually go into communities where they have such a fear of fire. And I know that that's probably brought on by the windmills that have been around here that have caught on fire, the windmills in Iowa that have caught on fire. We had a hoop building. We don't know the cause of it. We believe the cause of it is somebody left a space heater on because it was cold in certain areas of the building. Somebody left a space heater on. We think we burned it down. That was a wood-sided building, plastic hoop covering and things like that. It burned down. And so everybody's worried about the fire suppression. I've looked into it. We can put fire suppression into the systems using a 3M chemical. The chemical doesn't freeze. It can basically be stored in a cylinder, like propane can be stored in a cylinder. And it doesn't even care if somebody's in the building. It will not harm them. So it doesn't remove all the oxygen from the system. It just suppresses the heat and takes the heat away. So therefore there's no more fire. So we're capable of doing those things, and we're willing to do those things as well to try to mitigate anybody's fears. So I believe we have fire suppression under control, and we should have sound under control as well. Like I said, at least up to about the 200-foot mark. I don't think there'll be any issues moving forward when it comes to that.
See, I appreciate everything you're saying, and my only hesitation is the fact that we had these very similar conversations with the group that came in last November, December, when we had a moratorium in place. And we looked at it because they're like, we're gonna be at least a quarter mile away. You know, I thought I remember them saying, we're gonna put up an actual shed. We're not just gonna have pods and all this stuff. And it was, you know, sunshine and rainbows and all that kind of stuff. And then it was 600 feet away. We went and looked at another facility at squeaky bearings. I'd kind of like to see something in place where it's a set standard thing. So we don't have, because everybody will always find an exception.
Sure.
And I appreciate the 300. I'm a business person. I understand 300,000 is a huge deal, but we have to also look out for for our people.
No,
and that's where I think if we can get something down where this is some parameters for which you got to operate, if they're acceptable, great. We'd like working with you. If they're not, well, then, you know, we'll have to agree to disagree and move on. So that's where I'd like to see something standard so we don't have to always come up, well, there's always the new thing. There's always a different perspective or a different angle of how many different ways, semantics of doing something. How many different ways can you do something?
Sure. And there's only so much information that you need to absorb in your head about data centers. I understand
Right.
that, you know.
So that's where I think you know, she'd asked me and I was like, yeah, I think so. Just because I think we need to get something. I think the standalone ordinance with a few things, you know, sight distances, noise, you know, whether it's you know, I understand a lot of times the arguments with data centers where, well, you got grain dryers make the same noise for a few weeks out of the year versus 24/7, 365, and you know, 5 pods make a different sound than 20 pods. And you know, there's just all of these different things that affect.
Totally understand.
You know, so you know, and I think Lori, you even said that you went out to look at some things that when you called the zoning people in those counties, they didn't even know, oh, that's for grid stability. They didn't even know what they were for.
I told you.
Yeah, we had that conversation.
Sure, Charlie knew about that, yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
it's just, I think it's just some basic, and we're not gonna uber regulate and make sure you can only do, you know, work the hours of 11 and 7 in the morning, 11 at night. We're not, but just some basic parameters I think would be warranted.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you whatsoever. There's also something that I heard, and I tried to dispel the myth at the last meeting that we had of variable speed fans. I want to let everybody know in this room that as it becomes warmer outside, the things that we do don't become louder. They are the same. They're a constant. If we were still putting in an air-cooled system, the fans don't ramp up in June because it's hotter outside. They run the same speed the entire time, so the noise is not going up and down and up and down. And one day you'll hear it because it's 95 degrees out, and the next day you're not going to hear it because it's 35 degrees out.
I would say that's more because of wind and barometric pressures and things like that.
Correct.
than Actual fan speeds. So.
I actually heard a gentleman in the parking lot as I was walking to the car, he's like, imagine what the noise these things will make in June. And I wanted to say, these are not variable speed fans, but I didn't want to start it.
You bet.
felt
It's still
somewhat-
way out there.
Yeah,
No,
I
it's
kind of felt
just-
somewhat unsafe walking.
My
to car.
parents live 7 miles out of town, and on given days, we can hear the stock car races, and on given days, we can hear the announcers.
Yeah.
You know, so it just depends on
Yeah.
weather conditions, all that stuff can give you the variability. But again, there's still certain parameters that I think we need to set in place, or at least my feelings.
I don't disagree.
Charlie, so we've also had some concerns about the usage on on the grid system. We've heard that, because of these units, that large factory couldn't come into in a certain place because of the usage that was being used, that they wouldn't have enough to cover.
That is a fear, but that is something that is usually mitigated within a couple of years. So if there is usage at a particular property, well, a couple of years, yeah, it is. And well, if you're gonna build a factory, you're not gonna build a factory in 6
Yeah.
months either. It's gonna take a couple of years. It's gonna take planning. It's gonna come in from boards like this and in front of COCA as well. So in a cooperative's planning, they know, okay, we're at X amount of capacity for this particular substation, so we need to increase capacity in that area. So that's the talks of building other substations. And so if you look at the way a cooperative runs, some of the cooperatives I deal with, they are not the generation facilities. And some of the cooperatives I deal with, they don't own the substations. So they have a substation that's put in their territory that is not being used whatsoever. It might be used at 40% capacity, but it's there for planning. And the other 60% of capacity is just not, there's nothing that gets produced from that. There's no taxes that get produced from that. There's no electricity being paid for, there's nothing. But they still owe $35,000 a month to the generation facility to rent, to pay the lease on that particular substation. When we come into a community, we use all the power that's on that substation, and we basically pay the rent for that substation by paying for the power instead of them just losing money sitting there. So when it comes to the same thing, when it comes to the cooperative that we're dealing with here, they own their own substations, but you're all paying the rent on those substations, and it's not being used. It's like having an apartment building that has 100 apartments in it, but it's only rented out 40 of the apartments.
Well, I used to be the mayor of Wacokota for a while, and I know that we had lost a couple of economic development prospects, kind of like this situation, because our industrial park south of town, part of it was served by Wacokota Valley, part of it was served by MMU in town, and there's defined districts that you can't cross. The Wacokota Valley side needed to get power from across 61 and a substation, and they weren't willing to put it in unless there was a prospect going in, because it's a sizable investment.
Yeah.
The problem is nobody was really willing to wait the 1.5 or 2 years. And so when you have a company coming wanting to be open in a year, power takes 1.5, 2 years. So I appreciate your point in using some of that capacity, because we pay for it on your insurance, at least on your power bill in Wacokota, there's a purchase price adjustment, PPA. And if usage goes way down in the wintertime, your PPA goes up, because they are committed to buying so much power per month or per year. And as the summer comes and usage goes up, PPA can go down depending on where you are and how much power you have to purchase, because they are committed to buying so much power.
Correct. So
everybody's paying for that capacity, but there's capacity somebody can come in. So that's where and you know, I don't know. I'm sure this is going to sound completely superficial and everything, but if there was a lot more property value coming in, because I know you talked about taxes you're paying and it goes to the co-op and all that stuff. The county property taxes is where we get most of our revenue, and it's minimal at best as far as, you know, a rental property. Or a lot of the other people a year ago or 6 months ago were talking about buying an acre or two.
And theirs is,
There's
Yeah.
a bunch.
they were gonna buy. Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of whether your pods are there or not, the property value for an acre is minimal, you know, so versus a great big company coming in, 100,000 square feet, you know, commercially assessed, you know, several tens of thousands of dollars type of thing per, that's a difference too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but with that, we're talking what if instead of,
And I
This
think
is
it's gonna
something
become
we
more
wanna do.
prevalent as this progresses. There's more and more of them, whether they value at the pod or the equipment that's in it, or I don't know how it's gonna happen.
Well, I had a few we went out to ISAC a week ago, week and a half ago. There's a few supervisors from other counties saying they're exploring like a franchise fee type of thing. Which I know some of the cities and stuff do for like utilities, MediaCom, things like that. So it's just because, again, if you're gonna use most of the capacity, I don't. Right now, I'm just looking for basic things, and we can go from there.
While you're still here, one of the, there is an ordinance I'm watching that's very specific on the type of unit that they'd allow in this for noise purposes. So that's one of the ordinances that I'm looking at. And there's something, can I just bring up to you that I know our community is very big on, and that's being transparent and open. And I know that, that your company has talked about wanting to be a good neighbor.
Mhm.
And sometimes talking to those neighbors ahead of time is a really good approach.
One of the big fears we had with windmills and stuff is we're kind of unique in the fact that we have a large migratory bird population, eagles nest, all that stuff. And when you start adding sounds and all that kind of stuff, we don't know what kind of effect that might have. So
we just had this conversation.
About birds.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I was just more thinking, because the property owners that were, right next
Yep.
door.
Yeah.
The first time they heard about this is when they got a notice from our office letting them know that there was a hearing on this. So just, sometimes and I'm not telling you guys how to do business.
No.
I'm just, I mean, we don't want to be blind, as a property owner, I don't want to be blindsided and getting my information from a notice I just got from the zoning administrator. And I haven't even talked to the people that want to be my good neighbor.
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah,
And
I was
don't know
just,
why.
I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't know why these people didn't get. We use a system called Do Not Pay, and we basically pay a subscription into a system to basically mail things for us. And it does all sorts of goofy things, like helps you fight traffic tickets and sorts of silly things like that. So we don't physically stuff envelopes and mail them out, but we basically go into a system and say, these are all the addresses that need to have a letter sent to them, and send those letters out and saying, this is what we plan on doing. And I don't have an answer as to why
Okay.
everybody didn't get one.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
Some people did and some didn't. And I don't know, I've never mailed the thing to myself, so I don't know what it looks like. I don't know if it looks like junk mail and people just
I was
went.
gonna say that.
And that could be,
I don't know, but
because like I
understand.
said, told Lori, I said that day I had 3 phone calls going, what is this public hearing thing that's going on and what is data mining?
Yeah.
And of course, I'm trying to explain it to them, and I'm no expert on it, obviously, but
Yeah.
I was just kind of going off of the young lady that was here before and what she told us, and and I just said, if it's in your area, I would recommend going to the meeting, and
Yeah, like I said, I don't know what happened, and you're right. When I tell people what I do, they go, "Oh, I don't."
I think most people
They don't
think
know
a
what it is.
meeting is you're digging up coal or,
When I
so-
talk about Bitcoin, they're like, what is that even?
Yeah.
Can I see one? It's like, no,
No.
no, it's not because I'm being rude. You just can't see one.
Trust me, it's caused a whole family stir up in our family just talking about what is Bitcoining and.
I think, I appreciate everything you said. I think now where would the board stand? Do we do this short-term moratorium until we have the basic framework of an ordinance done?
I kind of feel like we have to for our citizens.
Yeah, and if you don't think it takes till August, you can do 3 months and then you can review it again. I don't know. I don't wanna do it every month, but it's gonna take. Projection is,
I'm
again,
drafting,
if I wanna drive out and see a new cooling system type, I wanna stand 600 feet away in both wind directions, and obviously, listen, somebody tells me 60 decibels, well, might be 80 before I even hear it, but
But at the same time, our ordinance might not be that forgiving at a, you know, at the closest dwelling. So, and
Yeah.
I think since these are more compact and they're not like wind turbines, we're not gonna, the way things set, and the low profileness of it, part of it was, the 2,000 foot distance we had from a property line with the turbines was for the fact of, we were also looking at, saturation for our scenic, you know, for our
Right.
county. So that was part of it. And data mining is more low.
Right.
So, I mean, we're not sticking up 400, 500, 600 feet in the air. So we're probably gonna be gauging this not at property line, but at a dwelling.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, obviously, there's things that can be done. I mean, you can build a 15, 18 foot high fence with insulation and scope it in. I mean, there's awfully engineering things that can be controlled the sound that'll take it that way.
We'd have to change our ordinance because we only allow 6.
Anyway,
Just the point.
where we at?
Okay, so, I mean, where we at in our agenda? What's on your?
Right now, we're at the discussion of possible motion about doing a
So we want to
data
face the
mining, data
place, the
processing
number.
facility moratorium.
I would like to put our moratorium in place.
Is that a motion
Yes.
Is that 90 days?
to the August?
I would go
31st,
with this and we can lift it ahead of time if need be.
when the ordinance is done?
If you don't think it takes that, it doesn't matter to me.
I think we're gonna be okay, but we do need to talk about an extension for another moratorium though.
You know, that ends the end of June.
I ain't gonna have it done.
Okay.
I would second.
We got a motion by Nin, second by Mike to approve resolution number 1105-03 25 a resolution approving moratorium on data mining facilities and data processing centers. Any other discussion? Does this affect anybody that has a project currently?
There are no currents, because basically the one that you guys had was stopped at last week's Board of
All right.
Supervisors meeting, so there's no current applications that
Okay,
have been presented.
okay.
And my understanding would be the first one has ended with your decision
Okay.
to accept the recommendation of the zoning commission last week.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
So that is until August.
August 31st.
I moved it out just because I'm usually one of those, I get a lot on my plate and I think I can do everything and I'm learning that I can't. So that's why I'm being less than optimistic on
Okay.
this one with that date.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a bit more education that needs to happen too.
Mm-hmm.
Wait on everybody's, you know.
So I would keep us informed as you can, you know, I mean, I want to lose, you know, heart here, but, keep us identified to what's going on. If there's something we can go look at or something new that you're doing. Keep us informed.
Okay.
So you don't want an email explaining Bitcoin mining? Is that what you're saying?
You can send that email.
If you can
I would like some of your
paragraph.
Delete this fast.
I would like it. I want an email of some of your facilities, like the Marshalltown one that has hydro cool,
Yeah,
things
you
like
can give us
that.
the
If you have
addresses.
some of the other ones where the different cooling things go in place, we'd like to see those. We'll go from there.
I'd be happy to provide that information. for
Thank you very much.
And I have that, we could go out there tomorrow.
Okay.
Like, that's your Ferguson Gilman is the one I think we're at the same.
I don't know. I'll
think
figure it
so.
out for you.
Okay.
And we'll,
Troy, did you leave your information?
He's going.
I'm gonna go get a card. I was just talking to Lori when I went out.
Okay.
Where you from?
Pardon me?
Where you from?
Cedar Rapids.
Cedar Rapids?
I was born in Webster City and live in Cedar Rapids.
Well, you know the lay of the land.
Yeah, I've been around here. I'll get you information. I want to figure out if it's Ferguson or not.
Okay,
What
'Cause we
we need
could-
to do is
Well, you guys can talk
Time for
about
you to
that out in
come.
the hallway.
and shut our air cooling system down so you can hear the
Okay.
water side. of
Is
it.
there,
Sure.
is this case 25-01? Is that what?
Thanks, everybody.
Is there
Thank
two-
you.
No, we did that, took care of that last week.
That was-
Still on here.
well, erroneously, I discussed that like right at the very beginning that wasn't needed. I I need to probably talk to you guys, next meeting about extending out our solar and battery storage moratorium.
Okay.
Because I do not realistically, I'm kind of putting the data mining in front of it, but then again, that's gonna be a lot easier one to write than
Just put it together.
the data mining.
Well, no, the solar and the,
Well, you can't just throw them together.
No, he's talking
he's
about the
saying-
moratorium.
Oh,
I'm
excuse
like-
me.
I'm
Not
like,
on the agenda.
You're
We don't
asking
need to talk
for- yeah.
about it.
put it together, bring it to us.
Yes,
We
sir.
appreciate it.
No
Okay.
problem.
Thank you very much.
Do that.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
See ya.
I was on the wrong page. you
Yep.
guys.
Luann, you're up.
Are you waiting? Okay.
We're doing a lot of time if you want to go back to that one point, okay?
I will wait for them, and then we'll have some time there.
Yep.
Lauren,
Good morning. All I have for you today is the calendar. Today at 11:30, we'll have the public hearing for the max property tax levy. At 1 o'clock this afternoon is the district director feedback meeting for 7th Judicial Advisory Committee, and that's a Google Meet in, so hopefully you have that on your phone or your iPad. At 4 p.m. is the Mississippi Valley Workforce CEO meeting by Zoom for Don. And at 5 o'clock is the Macocata River Valley Watershed Management Authority board meeting in Monticello, and that I believe is for anybody that wants to go. It's an in-person meeting at a restaurant. Wednesday, March 26th at 9 a.m. is an IRIS meeting in Dubuque by Zoom for NIN. Thursday, March 27th at 9 a.m. is an RPA meeting in Dubuque or by Zoom for Don and NIN. At 11 o'clock at the Jackson County Area Tourism Association meeting by Zoom for any of you, and I think Mike usually attends those. Also at 5:30 on Thursday is a HACAP meeting for Mike in Hiawatha or by Zoom. Friday, March 28th at 7 a.m. is a Macocata Leadership Team meeting by Zoom for Don. Monday, March 31st at noon is a DCAT meeting in DeWitt or by Zoom for Mike, maybe. Our next regular meeting will be on Tuesday, April 1st at 9 a.m. That was all I had for you today.
Okay, and just looking at at the calendar, so. Like the tourism one that you say is any, it doesn't show up on where calendar is now.
I've got it in Mike's calendar.
Right.
Okay, so I can change that.
yeah, put it on.
I mean, if you're saying they're any, we need to be able to have access to them,
Sure, okay,
you know.
all right.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you much. Back to you.
I just want to have a little bit of a discussion, and I would like to see the county adopt a policy concerning vehicles that are parked in what I call the East Courthouse parking lot. We have a vehicle that has been parked there and has not moved for months. This vehicle is not, the registration comes back to someone that does not even reside in Jackson County. Even when we were getting the notices from Luann to move our vehicles because of snow removal, that car was parked there and did not move, so Macocata had to plow around it. So that's how long that vehicle has been sitting there. And I think because we don't have a sign posted and it's not fenced, we are
Which
not.
part, this one?
Mhm.
What's the city parking lot policy there?
I don't know.
So we don't have any kind of policy that we can say, hey, unless we just.
I mean,
make
it's been
something.
months. It's not like a 72 hour or 48. I mean, it's been months.
So we can't mark that car either. If it's not moved in X amount of time, we can't have it towed.
Well, we need a policy.
Okay,
I
let's
think
do
we need
it.
a policy. We need to sign that, no vehicles parked, whatever your decision is.
Well, I know and this is where I'm gonna defer because we're in the city of Macocata. They have ordinances where your vehicle can't be parked on the street for more than 48 hours without moving before it can be subject to tow. I didn't know if there's a city policy that may be applicable for that kind of situation where,
I figured since this was the county it's a county lot. I didn't know. I mean, I certainly
Right,
can
but
reach
I
out.
think what he's getting
But
at is.
there,
could we
there
follow
could be
the
a
same-
rule
if
that we
there-
could say,
If
hey,
there is, could we follow their same policy since that is not really marked off anymore, what is
or
county and
I
what
would
is
talk to
city?
the sheriff and say, can we report this as an abandoned vehicle? It hasn't moved in months,
Well, I did that.
you know?
And it has
So I
some
did that
type
about a
of
month
pink
ago.
tag on it.
Somebody has put a note on it. I did not look at the note. I don't know what the
I haven't
note
either.
says. It did get rained on last week, so. I don't even know if the writing on the note is even, you can see it anymore. But I think that we need to be able to put up a sign that says vehicles left more than 48 hours will be towed. We need something.
But again,
Okay,
we're gonna coincide with the city, whatever their policy might be, because it's basically the same parking lot, so I
Right.
would say.
Yeah, because there's no defining point that this is
Right.
county, this is city, but at least I'd like to start somewhere that eventually people know. At the time of the trials that we had here, I had 2 vehicles moved. Because they had never moved, so I did contact the sheriff's office and those 2 vehicles were moved by order of the sheriff, so we could get more people in at the time of those 2 trials that we had. So.
I'm okay with that too.
So I think, so the question now is, as we move forward, do you want me to contact the city and come back with,
I would touch base with them, yeah, I mean,
Touch
one of us
base
can,
and-
or you can, or whatever you feel
so are we
comfortable.
willing to adopt a policy then and have a sign put up in the
Yes.
end? Is
I
that-
would like to see what they have and review and discuss.
Okay,
And
Yeah,
I
If you
guess
can
I would
find out what they
also,
have and email it out to us, and
I guess my question
We sure-
twofold is, what was the sheriff's, okay, there's a note on it. Who put the note on? What did it say? And if you could have cars moved because of a court trial, because they hadn't moved in a while and they got towed, why can't we just say this car's moved a while, get it out of here?
I mean, do you
I think
have to
it's
have a
just-
policy in place? Yeah, I get it, so you.
I think
you
one,
have
it's
to let them
covering
know.
our backsides
You know,
to
so
make.
I would ask,
Did
the
they, did our
sheriff and
sheriff's
see what-
office say that they had no jurisdiction at all?
I had talked to, Deputy Crocker is who I had talked to.
Okay.
And so, because at that point, there were 2 vehicles that hadn't moved in quite a while. And then all of a sudden, the one vehicle did get moved, but the other one is still there.
I
So-
would
Well,
just,
it's
I
our
would,
property, obviously, we should have the opportunity to move something if it's invading.
I think we should be able to put a note on that, and maybe that's what Crocker did, is put a note on it, so you got 48 hours to move your car. If it's been a week and that's what he said, we should buy in all rights and purposes because of the order of the sheriff, you didn't move your car, it's moved.
Okay. So I
And
will,
then in addition to, we can come up with the said policy that kind of delineates it, defines it a little better. I don't know if a sign needs to be put up just because all I can see is people running into it, because it's not like there's a lot of bumpers to stop them from backing into it or pulling
Unless you
into
put
it.
it in the interest of
It would-
parking lot as a,
the only place we could put a sign at this
48
point
hour.
probably is right there in the well, it's dirt or
Yeah.
grass between the sidewalk and the curb. We could put a sign.
Where
You know, and if the city has something on their part of the lot, our thing can be, we adopt same rules and regulations as the city.
So I guess
Yeah.
so what I'm hearing then is it's okay to go ahead and get a hold of Crocker again to see if he did something, if he put the note on or not, and if it's been long enough, we should have the vehicle removed.
Right.
And then what I'm also hearing is that I need to talk to the city of Macocota to see what their policy is.
Right.
And once I find something, then to email it to you and come back
Right,
so we
because
can move forward.
means it kind of looks like a contiguous parking lot. It would be nice if everything was
Okay,
the
I'll
same.
do that. At least we have a starting point to.
but
move
yeah,
forward.
otherwise I'd be in favor of like a 48 hour.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
obviously in 3 days, you should at least be able to go move it to a different parking spot or.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
something.
this person doesn't even live in Jackson County and maybe has moved here, but the
Right.
car probably hasn't moved in 3 months.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, originally it was kind of over the other way, a little ways
I
at
think there's
one
2 of
point.
them. I think there's 2 of them. That's why it's a little deceiving. Mhm.
Okay,
And what you have in your hands is what I'd like to discuss at our public hearing.
okay. All right,
That's all that I have for the board.
boards and commissions?
Early childhood met yesterday. Again, they're going through the same revamping. They got some very disheartening news as far as what is going to be funded, so it looks like, again, nothing set in stone, just like the mental health side of it. But, looks like possibly like our preschool scholarships, which really helps out the 3-year-old preschools. And like wraparound care for the preschools, that funding has a good chance of going away. So that's kind of a little bit disheartening as far as trying to get the kids into the learning system a little bit sooner and helping our young students out, but, they did get news that the RCR funding that, should very well stay, which will help out in some areas. That's one area they were worried about it going away, but like I said, the 3-year-old preschool is kind of the big concern. The state is very much into the 4-year-old preschool and funding that, so that should be okay, but they're also changing their boards. They're going to the same 7 districts as what the mental health did. But then they're making a board that's very limited on who's, obviously, so our district has like 3 different districts going in together for the 7th district, and who's gonna sit on that board and things like that, so we have elected 2 people to try to get to be a member of that 7th district board, so that's where that kind of sits.
Any other?
We've had several strategic planning meetings at ECIA as far as moving forward in the next 5 years. What's the strategic plan? And of course, most of you know that we're still in a interim director position. We have finished the interviews on that position, and an offer and a contract is in the works, or being approved by applicant, and then the exec board will bring it to the council for full approval for a hire. So, moving forward, things went well, I thought. So, had some really good applicants to consider, and it's a little bit big move. So.
Jackson County Economic Alliance, we met, and it was announced to the board the county contribution and the change that we approved in the budget going forward. So, and I explained a little bit due to staffing issues was the main thing, and if they do change that, it is something that can be reconsidered at that point. But that was the main reason. It wasn't because of performance or anything like that. It was strictly because it's 1/3 of the staff it used to be. So talked about that and some of the projects and grants that they've been working on. She's been pretty active and busy, so that went well. The Limestone Bluffs RC&D, there's a whirlwind with the federal activities and things and how it's going to affect the grants that she uses to help people in the county. So far, several of them seem to be still functional and all that, but she's been doing a great job working with a lot of the surrounding communities. Kind of match up to help her with the projects and those. So I think she right now is somewhere between 15 to 30 grants or something. It's almost dizzying to hear her report with all the people she's helping put things together for. So that's a breath of fresh air, so to speak. So anything else for the board?
I did also sit in on the senior board meeting, which, we're not true members of that board, but I did go down and listen to them. I've gone the last few times I've had a meeting. So basically their attendance down at the senior center for the month of January was 329, February was 200. And that's doing the quilting and card playing and all them other things that they do. They do still have their own individual meal thing that they got going just amongst themselves. She didn't give a report of how many of them they have. They are looking at Donna is kind of wanting to step back from the event planning and trip planning, so they're looking amongst themselves to see if there's anybody that's willing to step up and do that. They do have 2 events planned. One was the Diamond Joe, and that's going to take basically 2 buses. In June, they're looking at being the Lumber King sponsor, where they basically are the sponsor that night at the Lumber King, so it'd be the senior center building in Jackson County. and they get like 100 tickets, so they're looking at possibly selling tickets. So during that time, if anybody, residents of Jackson County want to go, maybe they can get in touch with the senior center and do a ticket packet. They also have a new phone number down there. Their phone number down there is 563-661-9231. So, and they were part of the event, I believe it was up at the Y just here last weekend, kind of talking about things in the community. They had new flyers that they were gonna hand out to that, so they're very much getting a very active role. I spoke with some of the quilters and so one of the quilt club basically works on like the quilts of valor. They do caps and that for babies. They do caps for chemo patients and bags for chemo patients. So they're very active down there and getting things going. They're having a little bit of computer issues, so they're looking at where to go for an IT person. I believe they're gonna kind of maybe reach out to a local business here in town that does IT work, but other than that, they're kind of moving forward.
Good, sounds good. Yeah, and I don't know if it's something simple, maybe Bjorn would go down and check it out, but he probably don't have time. Are they aware of the RTA road trips that they take and such?
Yeah, so the two buses, so it's like $140 a bus for the RTA bus. So basically, so the one to the Diamond Joe, they're planning on two buses too. And they'll probably be like a $5 per person charge or something like that to help fill that.
Sure.
So,
Good, it's nice to hear them that they're functioning and working on their own.
Let's see activity.
Yeah.
Anything else for the board?
For the business, I make a motion to adjourn.
second that.
Got a motion by Mike, second by Nin to,
Hang on, do we have to,
No, because we need to adjourn this meeting, and then we have to do.
we have to,
Yeah, so we have to definitely adjourn this meeting.
oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I know we had public hearing, but.
Yeah, we
we've got to
definitely need to
start
end
another-
this meeting and start a different.
Okay,
Yeah.
my motion stands.
got a motion by Mike, second by Nin to approve, to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye. Motion carries. Y'all have a great day.